He was blind, lost, and moments away from a horrific end. But on a crowded Toronto platform, a miracle unfolded, fueled by the courage of three men who didn't know his name. It was just another Tuesday. Coffee, subway, work. Same routine, Julie Caniglia thought, her mind already halfway to the looming deadline at her graphic design firm. The scent of slightly burnt coffee clung to the air inside Broadway Station, mingling with the metallic tang of the rails. A train screeched to a halt on the opposite platform, its arrival momentarily drowning out the tinny sound of a busker playing a vaguely familiar melody somewhere down the line. Julie adjusted her headphones, the upbeat tempo of her podcast a deliberate shield against the morning's pervasive grayness. She felt a fleeting chill, a prickle of unease, but dismissed it as the lingering effects of a too-short night's sleep. She was running late, as usual, mentally calculating if she could still grab a bagel before her 9 a.m. meeting. This preoccupation, this immersion in her own little world, almost cost her the chance to witness, and, crucially, to record, an act of extraordinary heroism. The faint cry almost didn't register. It was a weak, strained sound, a human whimper nearly swallowed by the approaching rumble of another train, her train. At first, Julie thought it was a glitch in her podcast, a momentary skip in the audio. She frowned, lowering the volume slightly. The unease from moments before returned, a knot tightening in her stomach. It hadn't been the podcast. The cry came again, fainter this time, almost a gasp. Her eyes scanned the platform. It was moderately crowded, a typical mix of Toronto commuters. Businessmen in sharp suits, their faces buried in their phones, students weighed down by oversized backpacks, a young couple holding hands, lost in their own world, a mother struggling to wrangle a stroller and a toddler. All of them, seemingly oblivious. Then she saw him. He was an elderly gentleman, his clothes neat but worn, his shoulders slightly stooped. His face, etched with the lines of time and worry, was pale. He clutched a walking cane, its wooden handle chipped and faded, a testament to years of use. He was navigating the platform slowly, hesitantly, his head tilted slightly as if listening intently. Julie realized, with a jolt, that he was blind. He seemed disoriented, veering too close to the edge. The moment unfolded in a horrifying slow motion. The elderly man's cane slipped on a patch of something slick on the platform. Spilled coffee, perhaps, or a discarded newspaper. He stumbled, his arms flailing for a moment, his cane clattering away. Then he fell. The sound of his body hitting the tracks was a sickening thud, a sound that cut through the ambient noise of the station like a knife. Julie gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Did that really just happen? A voice screamed inside her head. Someone help him. Someone do something. But for a precious, terrifying second, she was frozen, trapped in the grip of shock and disbelief. Her mind raced through a litany of excuses. It's too late. The train is coming. Someone else will do it. I'll just get in the way. But then she saw his face, even from this distance. The fear, the vulnerability, the utter helplessness. It was a punch to the gut. Empathy, raw and powerful, surged through her. She ripped off her headphones, the sudden silence almost deafening. He was there before she could even fully process what was happening. The man in the animal print shirt. He was young, maybe in his late 20s, with a lean, athletic build that suggested a runner or a cyclist. He moved with a speed and grace that defied the chaos around him. No hesitation, no second-guessing. Pure, un adulterante di instinct. He launched himself onto the tracks, a blur of motion, landing with a jarring thud that sent a shiver down Julie's spine. He was immediately at the elderly man's side, his focus absolute, his face a mask of grim determination. He ignored the flashing lights, the deafening roar, the palpable sense of impending doom. Two other figures joined him almost instantaneously. One was an older man, perhaps in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and a kind face. The other was younger, a teenager, his backpack still slung over one shoulder. They were a study in contrasts, age, ethnicity, background, yet they moved as one, a perfectly coordinated team. They didn't speak, they didn't need to. One gently cradled the elderly man's head, protecting it from the rough surface of the tracks. The other took his legs. The train was a monster now, a metal beast bearing down on them. The screech of the brakes was ear-splitting, a desperate, futile attempt to stop the inevitable. The rumble grew into a thunderous roar, shaking the very foundations of the platform. A sudden, fierce gust of wind whipped through the station, carrying the acrid smell of burning metal and ozone. Julie, her phone already recording, felt a scream building in her throat, but it was choked off by the sheer terror of the moment. Her hand was shaking so badly that the image on her screen was a blur, but she couldn't stop filming. She had to capture this insane, beautiful, terrifying act of courage. The lift was a brutal, agonizing struggle. You could see the strain on their faces, the muscles in their arms bulging, the sweat beading on their foreheads. They grunted with the effort, their bodies trembling with the strain. The elderly man, semi-conscious, groaned in pain, but even through his distress, a faint thank you, escaped his lips. Julie's heart ached for him, for his pain, for his fear, but also for the incredible bravery of the men risking their lives to save him. With a final, Herculean heave, they lifted him. They pushed him up onto the platform, just as the train roared past, a metal blur that missed them by mere inches. The wind from its passage nearly knocked them all off their feet. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then the collective exhale. The three men collapsed onto the platform, their chests heaving, their bodies slick with sweat. They looked at each other, a shared glance of disbelief and overwhelming relief passing between them. It was the look of men who had stared death in the face and walked away. The elderly man was quickly surrounded by concerned onlookers. Someone was checking his pulse. Another was loosening his tie. He was conscious, but clearly shaken, his face pale and drawn. He had a nasty gash on his forehead, and his arm was clearly injured, but he was alive. Julie lowered her phone, her legs feeling weak and shaky. She pushed her way through the gathering crowd, her heart still pounding in her chest. She approached the three men, her voice trembling with emotion. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice thick with tears. "Thank you so much. You saved his life." She repeated her thanks, her words inadequate to express the depth of her gratitude and admiration. She offered to get them water, to call someone for them, but they waved her off, their faces flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and adrenaline. The elderly man, propped up against a wall, was now able to speak, his voice weak but clear. He looked at the three men, his eyes filled with tears. "My angels," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "You are my angels." He explained, haltingly, that he was on his way to visit his daughter and his newborn granddaughter, his first grandchild. It was a small detail, a glimpse into his life, but it added a profound layer of humanity to the already extraordinary situation. The three men, meanwhile, were trying to deflect the attention. "Anyone would have done the same," the man in the animal print shirt said, shrugging his shoulders. "We just happened to be there." The other two nodded in agreement, their faces still flushed. They seemed uncomfortable with the praise, with the sudden focus on them. They were just ordinary men, caught up in an extraordinary moment. Before the paramedics arrived, before the police, before the inevitable swarm of media, the three men quietly slipped away. They melted back into the crowd, disappearing as quickly and anonymously as they had appeared. It was as if they were never there, leaving behind only the echoes of their heroism and the lingering scent of adrenaline and relief. Julie watched them go, a profound sense of awe washing over her. She knew she had witnessed something truly special, something that transcended the everyday grind, something that spoke to the best of humanity. She looked down at her phone, at the shaky, blurry footage she had captured. She knew she had to share it. She had to let the world see what she had seen. She quickly uploaded the video to her social media accounts, adding a brief but heartfelt caption, "Real-life heroes at Broadway Station." Never lose faith in humanity. Within minutes, the video began to spread. Like, shares, comments, it exploded. People were tagging news outlets, sharing their own stories of near misses and acts of kindness. The story was picked up by local news channels, then national ones. Soon, it was everywhere. The three men, still unidentified, were being hailed as heroes, their faces blurred and indistinct in the video, becoming symbols of hope and courage. Julie, watching the story unfold, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had played a small part in something big, something important. She had helped to shine a light on the extraordinary capacity for good that exists within ordinary people. The world could be a dark and cynical place, she knew, filled with noise and distraction and self-absorption. But sometimes, in the most unexpected places, in the blink of an eye, on a crowded subway platform on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday, you could witness a miracle. You could witness the power of human connection, the unwavering instinct to help, the breathtaking beauty of selfless courage. And you could be reminded that, even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found.